What do you actually see when you scroll through your social media feed? You see posts, videos, comments, and images that feel spontaneous, unfiltered, and real. But what if every single thing you see has already passed through a system of filters so vast and so carefully concealed that most people have no idea it exists? What if the internet you experience every day is not the raw internet at all, but a curated version, shaped by thousands of invisible decisions made by people you will never meet, working in places you will never visit, under conditions that most technology companies would prefer you never think about? There is a hidden workforce operating behind every platform you use. And here is the clue that should unsettle you. Some of the people deciding what you are allowed to see online are not employed by the platforms at all. They are employed by companies you have never heard of. Why does that distinction matter so much? Stay with it. Every time you open a social media platform, you are entering a space that feels open, democratic, and user-driven. The content appears to flow freely, shaped only by what people choose to share and what algorithms choose to amplify. But beneath that appearance is a vast and largely invisible system of human judgment. People, real people sitting at desks with queues of content in front of them, are making decisions every hour of every day about what stays on these platforms and what gets removed. Without them, the platforms would be unrecognizable within hours. Without them, the experience you have come to rely on would collapse under the weight of everything that people attempt to post. And yet most users never once consider who these people are. The assumption is that platforms are largely self-regulating, that community reporting and artificial intelligence handle the problem automatically and efficiently. But the reality is more complicated, more human, and more troubling than that comfortable assumption allows. The scale of content generated on major platforms every single minute is so enormous that no algorithm, however sophisticated, can manage it alone. Human judgment is not a supplement to the system. It is the foundation of it. And that foundation is deliberately kept out of sight. So who exactly are these moderators, and where do they work? The clue introduced at the start contains a detail worth holding on to. They are often not employees of the platforms themselves. They work for outsourcing companies, contracted to provide content review services at scale, in locations chosen partly for their lower labor costs. And this arrangement, so practical and so financially efficient for the platforms, has consequences that ripple through every layer of the system in ways that users are almost never informed about. Consider the numbers for a moment. Facebook alone has reported employing or contracting tens of thousands of content moderators worldwide. YouTube processes over 500 hours of video uploaded every single minute. Twitter, now rebranded but structurally similar, handles hundreds of millions of posts daily. TikTok, Instagram, Reddit, LinkedIn, and dozens of smaller platforms each add their own volume to a total that is, by any reasonable measure, beyond human comprehension. And yet humans are reviewing it. Not all of it, but a significant portion of the content that is flagged, reported, or identified by automated systems as potentially violating community standards. The flagged content lands in a queue. A person opens that queue and begins to work. What is it like to do that work? Investigators and journalists who have spoken with moderators describe conditions that most people in comfortable office environments would find difficult to imagine. Workers review content depicting extreme violence, child abuse, graphic self-harm, terrorism, and material of a sexual nature for hours at a stretch, in sessions punctuated by short breaks and monitored for productivity. Many describe developing symptoms consistent with post-traumatic stress. Some describe difficulty distinguishing between the content they reviewed at work and the content of their own thoughts afterwards. And they do this work for wages that are, in many documented cases, a fraction of what direct employees at the same platforms earn. How does the industry actually function? At the center of it are the major technology platforms, whose community standards and content policies define the rules that moderators are expected to apply. These platforms work with a network of business process outsourcing companies, known as BPOs, who recruit, train, and manage large teams of content reviewers. Companies like Accenture, Teleperform, Cognizant, and Sama have all been identified as providers of moderation services for major platforms. They operate in cities across the Philippines, Kenya, India, Colombia, and other countries where English language skills and lower labor costs make large-scale operations financially viable for their platform clients. The training provided to moderators is built around detailed internal policy documents called guidelines, which attempt to translate abstract concepts like hate speech, misinformation, and graphic content into specific actionable definitions that can be consistently applied across millions of decisions. But language is not consistent. Context changes meaning, and the line between a post that glorifies violence and a post that documents it for journalistic purposes can require sophisticated cultural and linguistic understanding that a short training program cannot fully equip a new hire to navigate. Mistakes happen, and those mistakes, whether they result in legitimate content being removed or harmful content being left up, have real consequences for real people. The artificial intelligence layer sits alongside the human layer, not above it. Machine learning models are trained on the decisions made by human moderators, using those decisions to learn which content should be flagged for human review and which can be actioned automatically. But the training data is only as accurate as the human decisions that generated it. Biases in moderation, whether driven by cultural context, policy ambiguity, or individual judgment, are encoded into the models and then applied at scale across hundreds of millions of pieces of content. The human error becomes algorithmic error, replicated at a speed and volume that no individual moderator could match. Think about the scale of what has been built here. The global content moderation market is currently valued at several $billion and is growing rapidly as platform usage expands and regulatory pressure on technology companies increases. Governments in Europe, Asia, and elsewhere are now mandating that platforms demonstrate active and effective content moderation as a legal requirement, not merely a policy choice. This regulatory pressure is transforming moderation from an operational cost center into a compliance necessity, which means the outsourcing companies providing these services are operating in an increasingly stable and lucrative market. How many human moderators exist in this ecosystem? Estimates vary significantly because platforms are not required to disclose precise numbers and outsourcing arrangements add further opacity. But credible research suggests that there are several 100,000 people globally working in content moderation roles at any given time, a workforce larger than many national armies, performing work that is foundational to the online experience of billions of users, yet almost entirely invisible to those users, and almost never discussed in the same conversation as the platforms themselves. Consider what that invisibility means for accountability. When a decision is made to remove a post, who is responsible? Is it the moderator who clicked the button? Is it the outsourcing company that trained them? Is it the platform that wrote the policy? Is it the algorithm that flagged the content for review? The answer is distributed across all of them and owned by none of them in any satisfying way. This diffusion of responsibility is not an accident. It is a structural feature of a system designed to achieve scale, while minimizing the platform's direct exposure to the human cost of the work. Now return to the clue. Some of the people deciding what you are allowed to see online are not employed by the platforms at all. They work for companies you have never heard of. Does this arrangement now reveal something more significant than it initially seemed? Think about what it means for the moderator. They are making decisions governed by a platform's policy, trained by a contractor's program, managed by a supervisor, employed by an outsourcing firm, and accountable to a chain of contracts rather than a clear employer-employee relationship with the company whose standards they are enforcing. This structure matters for a reason that goes beyond labor conditions. It matters because it creates a layer of distance between the platform and the consequences of moderation decisions. When a moderator makes a controversial call, the platform can point to the contractor. When the contractor is investigated, the platform's own policies are one step removed from direct scrutiny. The outsourcing arrangement is not simply a cost-saving measure. It is also a buffer, a structural mechanism that allows platforms to benefit from the moderation system while maintaining distance from its most uncomfortable dimensions. Here is what this entire system is really built on. The major platforms need moderation to function commercially. Advertisers will not place ads alongside harmful content, so moderation is not a values exercise. It is a revenue protection exercise. The platforms outsource the most psychologically demanding parts of that work to contractors operating in lower-cost markets, creating a tiered system where the people doing the hardest work are the furthest removed from the financial rewards the work protects. The outsourcing companies profit from the contracts. The platforms profit from the clean environment moderation creates. And the moderators, sitting in offices in Manila or Nairobi with a queue of disturbing content in front of them, receive a wage that reflects their position at the end of the chain. This is the secret business of online moderators. It is not secret because it is illegal. It is secret because its visibility would complicate the narrative that platforms prefer. The narrative that their communities are safe, their environments are managed responsibly, and their operations are conducted with care. All of those things may be partially true, but they are made possible by a workforce that is structurally designed to remain out of the conversation. The internet you scroll through today has been touched by thousands of hands you will never see, shaped by decisions made under conditions you have never been asked to consider, and filtered through a system built to be invisible, precisely because its visibility would raise questions that are inconvenient for everyone profiting from the arrangement. So the next time you scroll past something, or notice that something you expected to find is no longer there, ask yourself the question that this entire industry depends on you. Never thinking to ask, who decided what you were allowed to see, and what did it cost them to make that decision? Secret businesses based on online moderation.